What's worse than getting the friend zone? Getting the you're like a family member zone. Poor Sheba. So this week's chapter was mainly focused on character development and characterization of these characters. It didn't really do any progression as far as the plot goes, which I'm a little shocked because on her blog, like I said in my last review, I thought that Shinobu Otaka was really going to start wrapping things up very quick, so I was surprised to get just like an all-out character development chapter, but nonetheless, it was setting up the foundation, which again, a lot of this is building up to what ultimately will make one of these characters snap. For the most part, it seems like it's 90% chance that it is indeed Sheba that will become Gyokuen, but this is definitely setting the foundation as to whoever will become that, why they do become that. And I'm guessing a big part of it, again, is them feels, because in this chapter, you see that we learn a little bit about Sheba. She didn't have her parents. She was basically an orphan from when she was younger. And when she came in, she was like, okay, Solomon and Arba, they're like mommy and daddy. And that's how she felt mainly with them. So we see that it makes a radical departure. And I guess that plays a real, like a real life aspect in a way. Because like when you're younger, you look at people in a different way. It's like, oh, this and that. Like, let's just say you're hanging out with your big brother and, you know, some of his girlfriends. And I don't mean like, you know, like girlfriend. I mean just like friends that are girls or whatever. When you're younger, it's just like, oh man, I'm having so much fun with them. When you're a little bit older, you're like, yo, she kind of cute. You know, I didn't really look at her like that, but now that I look, she's looking kind of hot. So I guess that's in a sense what Sheba was getting. At first, it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's Solomon. That's like, you know, that's like father, that's big brother, that's father, stuff like that. When she got a little bit older, it was a little bit different. So you see the change, I guess, and that's why she had those glaring eyes towards Arba, and Arba kind of could sense it for a while. And once again, it was pushing forward something that we, for the most part, already know, that pretty much Solomon is scared of being worshipped. They were building statues, and he went apeshit and just broke them down. So he really doesn't want to be worshipped. And I guess I've never been in that position, so I wouldn't be able to understand it, where pretty much you don't want to be worshipped to the point where it's aggravating you and you're scared of it. And that's one of the things that you can see is Solomon's fear that him being worshipped is going to turn him into his father. But I think if you have a strong enough resolve, something like that wouldn't even faze you. Would just be like, at the end of the day, build statues. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to be like David, whatever, you know, regardless of what happens. But again, that's from a perspective of somebody. I've never been worshipped. There's never been statues of me. And I've never had a fucking father that was conquering the world. So I can't really say in the shoes of something like that. But from my perspective, from the outside looking in, for me, I would just be like, do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be me, and I'm not going to let my father's bullshit affect me one way or the other. From what I get with this whole Alma-Tehran arc, Phelan and Wahid are pretty much like the comedic relief, because, you know, from the beginning we start off that he just like liked her and they was getting things going. By this point now, they have a baby and they're married at this point, and, you know, at the end of the day, the only thing that he wants from her, Wahid, of course he loves her and everything, but he just loves them tits, and that's one of the big comedic reliefs of this, but it's also to show a life that Solomon might have taken. Like, I think that it's showing different outcomes and different paths for these characters and what they could be. Phelan and Wahid is one of the lives that, well, you know, they just settle down, they love, they have family, and it's just more of a tamed and normal life. And I think that's also, while it's giving comedic relief, it is also giving a different perspective and a different life than the life that a lot of these other people are living in, like that Solomon could choose if he really wanted to. And the thing that I caught in this chapter, which we finally got confirmation, Solomon is 22 now, so 5 years ago, he was indeed 17 before the 5-year time skip, so it all makes sense now. Arba was 12 at the time, 5 years ahead of time, which I don't get why she would look at him as a father when he was 17 and she was 12. If anything, it should have been more like a big brother relationship, but I guess since him and Arba was so close, that's the best thing that she could at the time relate to, like father and mother. And the thing about it is, where in this chapter pretty much Arba tells her, you know, I want you to be Solomon's wife, where you would look at her, you'd be like, why would she give up on, like, you know, trying to be with Solomon? But I think really Arba looks at Solomon like a son or possibly even a grandson to a certain degree as far as just perspective, because again, in this chapter we find out that Arba is the oldest amongst all of them, and even though of course she retained her her youth because she could use that magic, if she is the oldest of all of them, and Ugo is what, 58 or something like that, or possibly 60 something now, because I believe he was revealed to be like 58 before the time skip, so she is at least 60 or more. A 60-something-year-old with a 22-year-old, she has a different outlook on life. She looks at things in a very different way. And overall, maybe some of the things that Solomon does, he will look at as juvenile. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a 60-something-year-old just really doesn't look at Solomon in that way and looks at him more like a comrade, family, but not like, husband material. But then again, you never know. She could be a cougar. And the burn that Sheba must have felt, because you see it in the chapter where Solomon's pretty much like, I don't want kids, which again, that falls along the lines of two other people, David and Sinbad. They didn't want kids, and Solomon's pretty much like, maybe in 200 years I'll consider it or something like that. But at the least, the difference between him, Sinbad, and David, Sinbad is like, I don't want kids, I already got kids. My people are my kids. Cinderella are my kids. And then David was like, I never wanted it, but it was all a part of destiny. With Solomon, at the very least, he embraces it at some given point. I will do it at some time. The other two, they were like, no, I don't give a fuck. I don't want kids. I'll do it for destiny, but I don't even want them. He's embracing it and saying, yeah, at some given point I will do it, but as of right now, he's just really skeptical, and he's just in the process of figuring out what he wants to do. And the burn, when he's pretty much like, oh, and anyway, we already got a brat right here. Look at Sheba, she's our kid. And I was just like, talk about friend zone. Like, the friend zone is one thing, but to get the, you're like my daughter, you're a brat, like, she must have felt horrible. And then it caught me off guard when Arba asked Sheba pretty much, be his wife. And she was explaining to him how he has a weak spirit. And it almost seems as though he needs like two women in his lives, because while she's telling her, yeah, you be his wife, but I'll be the foundation when things are ferocious and things are going through like that, and you'll be the foundation on the other side. And it almost seems like Solomon needs really two wives or something like that. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he gets two wives, if Arba and Sheba are both his wives, and maybe that's what makes one of them fall into depravity. Although, it was interesting enough when you get the comparison between the two, how Sheba was the light and Arba was the dark. Could that be some foreshadowing to a fall into depravity? Could it be something else? Could it just be symbolism? I'm not really sure, because she was saying I'll be in the dark time, so that could be just a representation of what she was saying. But nonetheless, it was an interesting art where you see like Solomon in the middle, and then you see both of them on each side, almost as if he's having two wives. Maybe that's what she was trying to insinuate, like, I'll have my wife and the side chick or something. I don't know, like, and I'm talking about as far as symbolism goes, not actually that Solomon's like, yeah, I'm going to be pounding both of them. No. And something that I got from this chapter as well is where you constantly see in this flashback that Solomon was like, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to end up like him. And Arba says, you got to follow him, even if it means that eventually he'll kill them all. What if at some given point, Solomon's ideals just get so screwed up and he eventually does succumb to what his father was like, and that's what makes Sheba betray him? It could be something different than love as well. It could be something that makes her betray him simply because she doesn't agree with his ideals. Or maybe his ideals were so fucked up and she follows him through and then says at the last minute, yo, this dude is crooked. I need to betray him. Just food for thought, people. And then at the end, it just kind of ends off with a gag where she tries to ask him out and he's like, yo, are you still sleeping? So overall, it was for the most part funny character development and characterization, but no progression as far as the plot goes. And it did feel like some fillerish in a way. Like, it did have good moments, and it did give, again, some importance to the characters and unique character-driven chapters, but at times, for the most part, I felt like, yeah, now it's starting to feel a little bit draggish with this arc. So overall, I'm going to give this one 6.5 out of 10. Fine chapter. Shinobu, let's definitely get the plot going. We took like a standstill for the past 2 weeks. First, we had the David thing, which it was humongous and absolutely amazing, but it didn't progress as far as, like, the story goes, what's going on. And then likewise with this chapter, we were just getting character development and characterization, which is necessity, but overall, again, like, I want some more plot progression. We've been at a standstill for a couple weeks now, so yeah, that's where I stand with this chapter. It was funny, had some good moments, but as a whole, it just felt a bit sluggish, and again, no progression as far as the plot goes. Well, let me know what you guys think. First of all, regarding my theory, do you think it's a possibility that Solomon does get screwed up midway through, and that's something that we didn't get to see? Remember, the Rook only shows you what it sees. Maybe the Rook didn't see that Solomon was fucked up at some given point, and that's why Aladdin wasn't able to show it. What do you think about this whole thing with Arba being the eldest of them all? Do you think that Arba never really looked at Solomon in that romantic type of way, but more so in like a son or grandson or just family? And just your overall thoughts of the chapter. Again, a fine, nice little funny one. You need one like that every once in a while, but let's get back to the main good and the beef of moving things along. But that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for poor Sheba getting her heart broken. And I believe next week we won't be having a chapter. I believe this was supposed to be a double, and then the following week we don't get one. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, as of right now, hopefully Almataran kicks into high gear and we get to move on things, because I finally want to find out who the hell is Gyokuen, and if it is indeed Sheba, why? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.